and welcome to our local class who have braved the elements tonight to come out to study the Word of God and biblical archaeology, and to our web students here and across the country, indeed across the world, who have joined us live. And we are delighted to have you. We begin with our Israel update. By the way, is the sound all right? Can you hear okay in the back? Okay. All right. Our Israel update. Have you heard about what Prime Minister Netanyahu is unveiling this week? Yes, no, no. Well, he has announced the new drones that Israel has developed. We're familiar with the drones that are about maybe the size of the wingspan of one of these tables here that go around and do surveillance and also some military activity. But what Netanyahu has presented is a gigantic drone. It is reported to have a wingspan of a 737 or 747. A large drone that has the capacity to fly to the Persian Gulf and back from Israel, and has the capacity to carry large bombs, presumably that would be sufficient to knock out the nuclear facilities in Iran. Our understanding is that these are made in Israel by Israelis. So it is a remarkable military achievement. How this will play out in the days ahead as things continue to be tense in the Middle East, we don't know. But it is a new event, it's a new development, and it's worthy of our knowing about and understanding. Anything else on that?
They say they can fly 40,000 feet.
40,000 feet. And they are drones. They don't require a pilot, which is very helpful in today's warfare. And they are capable of being refilled with gasoline, and they are capable of filling other airborne craft with gasoline. So, they are quite remarkable. Okay, shall we begin with lesson 4? All about Beit Shan, for instance. We will study it first, and its association with King Saul and King David. Now, what we're going to look at is a trilogy of cities. 3 cities in the upper Jordan Valley that are famous from antiquity. Some mentioned, at least one for certain, is mentioned in the Scriptures. You see the 3 arrows that we have here. 2 are on the west side of the Jordan, and 1 is on the east side of the Jordan. The northernmost, on the west side of the Jordan, is Beit Shan. And you'll notice it is situated a few miles south of the Sea of Galilee, in the Jordan Valley, not far from the river, Beit Shan. And it goes back to biblical times, to Old Testament times, and was a city that continued to flourish on into New Testament times and into Byzantine times, and flourished until an earthquake destroyed it, I believe, in the 600s A.D. This is an area view of Beit Shan, the old city. Now, as is the case with most of these ancient cities in Israel, and even in other parts of the world, the oldest part of the city is the high part. You see this in Corinth, in Greece. You have Corinth and then Acrocorinth, High Corinth. Here you have Beit Shan, and you can see the remains on the top of the tell. And then down below you can see, and we'll see even much more of it, the new city, in New Testament times and Byzantine times, that was occupied later. So when you're talking about a city, it's usually what it was like, let's say mostly in Old Testament times, and then what it was like in New Testament and beyond times. That's an interesting picture, is it not? All right. We read about Beit Shan first in Joshua 17:16. And the children of Joseph said, "The hill country is not enough for us. And all the Canaanites that dwell in the land of the valley have chariots of iron. Both they who are in Beth Shan," and the word Beth is the equivalent of today's Beit. It's just spelled a little different, pronounced a little different. "And its towns, and they who are in the valley of Jezreel." So the tribes that descended from Joseph wanted more than just the hill country. They wanted the valleys, but they were occupied by important cities. One of them was Beit Shan. And they were well garrisoned. They had chariots of iron. They had walled cities and so forth. So they were asking for some help to conquer those cities and populations. But this is the first mention of the city of Beit Shan during the Joshua invasion of Canaan. This is a picture of the new city and the old city from the ground. It's kind of looking back in the opposite direction that we were looking at in the aerial photo. And you can see that the old city was way up there. It took a lot of effort just to go into town. And many of these cities were like that. Megiddo was like that. Jerusalem was like that. You had to go up a considerable height just to get into the city. And of course that was for protection from invasion and things of that nature. But here you do get a glimpse of the colonnade that existed in the Byzantine and Roman periods of Beit Shan. Now it is interesting that Jesus is never said to have gone to Beit Shan, nor is he said to have gone into Tiberias, because at the time these were mostly pagan cities. There were Jews that lived in them, but there were a lot of Greeks and Romans and peoples from other areas that had settled in places like Beth-Shan in the New Testament times. And often, when Jesus and his entourage would go to Jerusalem from the Sea of Galilee, they'd cross over on the east side of the Jordan Valley and come down toward Jerusalem on that side, thus bypassing completely the city of Beth-Shan and Tiberias, for that matter. In 1 Samuel 31, we read, "And it came to pass on the morrow, when the Philistines came to strip the slain." Now this is after the fateful battle between the Philistines and King Saul and the Israelites. The battle was over. Saul was dead. And they were coming by to strip the slain. That was part of their booty. That they found Saul and his 3 sons fallen on Mount Gilboa. Mount Gilboa is on the south side of the Jezreel Valley and toward the Jordan Valley. It's kind of at that corner where the Jordan Valley meets the Jezreel Valley. But they found Saul, and they cut off his head and stripped off his armor and sent into the land of the Philistines round about to carry the tidings unto the house of their idols and to the people. And they put his armor in the house of Ashtaroth. And they fastened his body to the wall of Beth-Shan. So get the picture here. They cut off his head and they send it down to the 5 cities of the Philistines, which was in the southwestern part of Israel. And were parading his head around the various pagan temples in the 5 cities and gloating over their defeat of Israel. And they put his body, hung his body on the wall of Beth-Shan. That was up on the high city. And hung it up there. His headless body. Now the people who occupied Beth-Shan at the time were Canaanites. They were not involved in that fight between the Philistines and the Israelites. They were neutral. Nevertheless, they allowed the Philistines to hang the body of Saul on their wall. And when the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead, that's on the other side of the Jordan, heard concerning him that which the Philistines had done to Saul, all the valiant men arose and went all night and took the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons from the wall of Beth-Shan. They not only put Saul's body there, but his sons. And they came to Jabesh and burnt them there. And they took their bones and buried them under the tamarisk tree in Jabesh and fasted 7 days. The sad story of the end of Saul. And his connection, the connection of his death with Beth-Shan. Second Samuel 1, 19 and 20. Here we have David's lament over the death of Saul. Thy glory, O Israel, is slain upon thy high places. How are the mighty fallen? Now, the strange thing about David is he always honored Saul. Was Saul his friend? No. Saul was trying to kill David. Ever since the time that he was anointed by Samuel. And Saul chased after David and tried to kill him. And David had opportunities to kill Saul. But he would not. Because he honored Saul as the anointed of the Lord. And even here, after he's dead, and the way is open for him to assume the throne of Israel, he weeps over Saul's defeat. And he says, tell it not in Gath. Publish it not in the streets of Ashkelon. Well, what are these?
They're Philistine cities.
These are the Philistine cities. 2 of the 5 Philistine cities. Lest the daughters of the Philistines rejoice. Lest the daughters of the uncircumcised triumph. Yes?
Isn't Ashkelon one of the cities that's been in recent years bombarded from Gaza? And of course it's a Jewish settlement now.
Yeah, it's the southernmost of Israel's towns coming down toward Gaza on the coast. It's on the coast. And it is a Jewish city today. And some of the rockets, what do they call them? Katyusha rockets from Gaza came into the Ashkelon area. Yes. We've been there. That happens to be the traditional site of the beaching of the whale or great fish that swallowed Jonah. And they will show you where they believe that the whale coughed up Jonah. Right there by Ashkelon and the city. By the way, that's where our guide, Zvi, a native Israeli, was baptized when he received Christ. And he was baptized on the beach, on the ocean. And he tells the story that when the pastor was about to baptize him, he was also a Jewish believer, an Israeli believer. A great wave came up and engulfed them. So they were, he felt they were baptized by the Lord in that great wave. Fascinating place. Okay. So David does not want the announcement of the death of Saul to be spoken of in the cities of the Philistines. 2 Samuel. Thy glory, O Israel.
It's the same
It's the
slide.
same two
There's
verses.
a duplicate, yeah.
Oh, it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. I just put it in twice.
Carried away.
There you go.
Okay, now this is the upper part of Beth-Shan. Some of the remains that have been uncovered, some of the, both from the Canaanite and Israelite occupation of the city of Beth-Shan. Of course, the Israelites took over Beth-Shan and occupied it for many centuries. And they found a lot of different things, just as they have found in other tells. But this is the city where the wall was, where the body of Saul and his 3 sons, including Jonathan, hung And this gives us some perspective as to what that was like. It's as though the Philistines chose the highest point around to display the body of their slain enemy. Now, the excavations at Beit Shan have been going on for years. 15, 20, maybe more years. And they have really uncovered some remarkable things in lower Beit Shan. The colonnaded street that you can see here is the main street, and it had colonnades. Perhaps it was even covered from column to column with fabric of some kind. You remember Paul was a tent maker, and he may have made just regular tents for people who were traveling, but also a great use of tent material was canopies over colonnaded and other structures for shade. And so that's what some of those that tent material might have been used for. But you can see it was an elaborate city. What do you think this is here?
Amphitheater.
It's a theater, yes. Not an amphitheater. Why is it not an amphitheater?
One side.
One side.
Only on one side. Remember that.
Okay.
It was a beautiful theater, just like the others, well suited for acoustical purposes. And they have restored it, uncovered it, and you can sit there. The city was destroyed by an earthquake, as I think I mentioned, in the 600s. And many of these columns had fallen down, but they had fallen down in place. So they could be reset. And that's what they've done. It's covered. A lot of it is covered with, this is fabric of some kind, canvas or something, and where they can do their work. A lot of digging, a lot of restoration, a lot of stuff is going on in Beit Shan. Jack, you said you were there
Yes, sir.
a couple of years ago. Made an impression on you.
They had good plumbing.
Pardon?
They had good plumbing.
Good plumbing, yes. Yes.
The Romans were pretty good at all those things.
They had drainage, sewer lines, all kinds of things. It was a highly sophisticated, advanced Greco-Roman Jewish center. It was one of the cities of the Decapolis. I think it was the only city of the Decapolis that was on the west side of the Jordan.
Define Decapolis.
Decapolis was a group of 10 cities in that general area, mostly on what we call Jordan today. Some up on the Golan Heights, some out like Jerash toward Ammon.
Was Gadara part of that?
Pardon?
Gadara? Was that part of the Decapolis?
Say it again.
Gadara, where the demoniac was?
Oh, Gadara. I believe it was. I believe Gadara was one of the 10 cities. Yeah. And they were, for the most part, pagan cities, but they had a special position in the Roman Empire. I think they were considered independent city-states. Yeah.
Do you know anything about the timeline of this particular lower city? Was it, I guess it was in existence during Jesus' time,
Yeah.
when it started? The lower city?
I don't know how much before New Testament times it was occupied, but quite possibly in the Maccabean period. I don't know. It seems like it didn't really come to the fore so much until Roman times, but I could be wrong on that. I wasn't there.
Why were you?
Some of you may think I was. No, I just haven't studied that part of the history, but it'd be interesting to find out. Now, this is another view of the new city. Pretty extensive. Pretty large population there. Now, here's a pretty good overview. You see the newer city in the foreground, and the upper city kind of in the middle of the picture, right here. Well, that's Beit Shan. And it's surrounded by hills. And out there, I believe this is looking toward the Jezreel Valley. It's very fertile. Breadbasket of Israel there. More columns. And they're still uncovering things. They got years more work to do in uncovering Beit Shan.
Just kind of the thing impressed me was how sophisticated it was.
Yeah.
Like one of our modern cities, had all the things that like a modern city would have.
And a Greco-Roman city would have had baths, public baths, the theater, the markets, the agora, and all of that. And certainly Beit Shan was one of the more sophisticated cities.
Tom?
Yeah.
About how many people? You didn't say how many people.
What was the population?
Yeah, what was the population?
I really don't know.
Don't know, not even guess, huh? 10,000 maybe?
Several thousand, I'm sure. Jerusalem had, according to Josephus, some 300,000 regular inhabitants, and then it was greatly swollen on the feast times. I don't know about Beit Shan, but you might hazard a guess that it might be like the size of Tyler, population-wise. Not necessarily living within the walls, but in the environment of greater Beit Shan. This is more observations. I think this is kind of in the early stages of the excavations, what it looked like. There's even an Egyptian influence in Beit Shan, and they've uncovered this, which kind of has an Egyptian aura about the architecture. You can see what that looks like. May have been a public building, may have been a home. If so, it was a large home. Close up of the theater. And what are those exits called?
Vomitorium.
Vomitorium. Very graphic description.
I thought there was a bowl, Tom, in the exit with the vomitorium.
Thought they were what?
That was the bowl in the exit was a vomitorium, wasn't it?
The exits, yeah. This is, to exit, you can go through those openings there and then go out.
I know, was it the vomitorium in the exit and had kind of a bowl there?
A bowl?
A bowl, yeah. A tub where you Regurgitate.
Oh, where they would fall in.
Right.
Only if the play was very bad.
Now here is a guy carefully cleaning the top of a Corinthian, I think that's a Corinthian pillar, a capital. And you see he's using, a little pick and a brush, painstakingly cleaning an ancient artifact. A great care is taken in preparing the things that they find. Now, not far away is Tel Rehov. You remember that we said this upper blue arrow points to Beit Shan. Just down the river, still on that side of the river, is Tel Rehov. I must admit, I had not heard of Tel Rehov before I got there for this journey. But it is found in the annals of the Egyptian records, and there was correspondence between Tel Rehov and Pharaoh in the days when this was pretty much, Canaan was pretty much an Egyptian outpost, and was sort of an early warning system in case the Mesopotamians came down to trouble Egypt. So there was correspondence between them. It's an interesting looking place. Here's an aerial view. And this gives you a pretty good view of the Jordan Valley. It's called here the Beth Shan Valley Archaeological Project. Tel Rehov and Tel Beth Shan excavations and publications. I don't think you can see the Beth Shan from here, but if we're looking north, it would be back up in here somewhere. But look at the Tel. It probably originally was lower, and each civilization built on top of the other until it has this. Now it has two levels. There is the lower level and the upper level. The upper level, as before, is the oldest part. The lower level is the newer part. But I think that's a beautiful picture. But again, look how high you have to go just to get into the city. Now this is a pretty new excavation. They've only been at it for 2 or 3 years. The man in charge of the Tel Rehov excavations is Amichai Mazar. Now you've heard this Mazar name before. Benjamin Mazar did the great work on the city of Jerusalem. Eilat Mazar is his granddaughter, and she is doing excavations and work on the city of David, especially the palace of David. Amichai Mazar is one of the sons of Benjamin Mazar. The whole family is just synonymous with archaeology in Israel, and he is doing. It's an ongoing annual event to go to Tel Rehov and do the excavation. It was essentially a Canaanite city. I don't know that it was ever occupied by the Israelis. But it was certainly a Canaanite city, and was a sister city on the west side of the Jordan to Beit Shan. One of the things it was known for was beehives. Beehives. And they have discovered these beehives. Now, they're not like any beehives that I've ever seen. They're these clay forms. But apparently they were well suited for the bees to make their hives. And that's how they were used. So Tel Rachov was well known for its beehive, its honey production. And here is yet another view of the beehives, how they were situated. And you see how much below the surface they are. So the top of Tel Rachov is up here, and there's several layers of civilizations down to where you get to the beehives done by the Canaanites. Fascinating thing. Okay. I believe we will take now a brief break. And when we come back, we're going to do Pella and Petra.
All right, Tom, thank you. Looking forward to that. So while Tom takes a little time to wet his whistle and stretch his legs a little bit, any of you that in the local group that want to do that too may feel free to do that. Would like to take a few minutes to address our web audience. I want to remind you of the various things that are on the website. We're gradually getting that built back up. When we had the attack on our websites recently from hackers, vicious hackers, we've had a lot of repair work to do, and I think they decided to go ahead and do away with the old school Tyrannus website, and now it's Tom McCall Ministries. And of course we have some related websites as well that we have links to. But all of those websites were attacked. And we're slowly but surely trying to get that cleaned up and get it back online. One of the things that we have not yet done is a place where you can donate electronically online to the ministry. We would encourage any of you who feel so led to contribute to this ministry. About the only way that can be done nowadays is through a check, which you can send via snail mail to an address in Bullard, Texas. I don't have that right in front of me at the moment, but if you look online, you should be able to find the ministry address on the website somewhere. Look for one that says Living Programs Foundation, with an address in Bullard, Texas. That's Bullard. It's a little suburb south of Tyler, where Tom lives. Tom and Karen, excuse me. We do solicit donations because though we do not have, this is not a huge ministry, we don't have a lot of expenses, we do have some, and we appreciate any help that you can give us along those lines. So please make checks out to Living Programs Foundation, and those donations are tax deductible. I want to assure you of that. Okay, otherwise, as various things get put back up and put back online on the website, there's some archive material, I believe, there already. We're working real hard to get more of that back online. And I believe what Grady Jr., our web person, for want of a better title, has told us it may be several months before this particular class is archived on the web. But for those of you that might be interested, I have no idea what the cost would be, but for those of you that might be interested, you can inquire by email. I believe they will be available in the not too distant future, just a few weeks off perhaps, a DVD version of this class. So if you have really enjoyed it and want to share this class and the things in it with other people, you can check by email and find out what you have to do to get a DVD of this 4-session class. So any of you that want to do that, I would suggest that. Otherwise, other things are going up on the web as soon as we can successfully clean everything up and get everything packaged and uploaded back onto the website. We are doing that just as rapidly as we can. Okay, where's Tom?
He's getting to drink water. It's not ready to start again.
He's just now wetting his whistle.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's looking for a cup. I couldn't find a cup. There's a water fountain over there.
Yeah. I can mention one other thing. Lindy, can you hand me the new poster? We have... yeah, thank you. Tom, in the last year or two, has restructured the way he does his classes. And instead of much more lengthy classes, as he has done in past years, he has gone to a format of 3 sessions per year of 4 weeks duration each. I think the first one we did was last year when we did Ezekiel 36, 37, 38, and 39, which of course includes the Valley of Dry Bones and the Gog and Magog War. But the spring session, which will begin on the second Tuesday in April, that's April the 13th, and go through the first Tuesday in May, and that will be on the rapture and the second coming. And of course, he gives you 2 designations there because they're 2 different events. And that's one of the things that we'll be addressing in this particular session, why we believe there are 2 elements to the second coming of Jesus Christ. The rapture of the church and then the second coming at the end of the Battle of Armageddon. And he will cover some interesting topics on there. When will the rapture take place? What will happen to the church after it is raptured to heaven? How much time will pass between the rapture and the return of Christ to the earth? What will cause the Lord Jesus Christ to return to the earth? Did you know something had to happen for him to come back? What will happen to Israel and the Gentiles when Christ returns to the church? These are just some of the issues that will be addressed in this 4-week session, which I think you'll find very, very interesting. But that will begin the second Tuesday in April and go through the first Tuesday in May. So, mark that on your calendar right now and be ready for it when it comes.
That's the week after Easter.
Yeah, that's the week after Easter. Okay. All right. Tom has wet his whistle, and he's back, and there to go. Okay.
Thank you very much, Bob Dooley. And we are delighted to be back after our break so that we can continue our study of these ancient cities in the land of Israel and in the Middle East. Pella of you has heard of Pella? You have. 1, 2. It's not well known, is it? Pella. Well, where is it? You remember we saw that Beit Shan was up here just south of the Sea of Galilee in the Jordan Valley. Tel Rehov is just 2 or 3 miles south of Beit Shan, still on the west side. And sort of in between, but across the Jordan River is the town of Pella. Just like Tel Rehov, Pella goes back to the Canaanite times and to the times of the Egyptian supremacy over Canaan. And it too was an outpost for Egypt, but on the east side of the Jordan. As you come down from Mesopotamia, by the way, are you able to hear me okay? Back in the back? Okay. As you came out of Mesopotamia, you come through the Golan Heights, by the Sea of Galilee, down the Jordan Valley, and you would come right across Pella. Same with Beit Shan and Tel Rehov. So it goes back. Now, what it was called back in those days, in the earliest days of its existence, was Pachel. Pachel. P-A-C-H-E-L. And remained with that name until the time of Alexander the Great. When Alexander the Great conquered all this area, his soldiers thought, this is the story, thought that Pachel looked a lot like Alexander the Great's hometown in Greece, which was Pella. Pella. So, in honor of their great leader, they renamed Pachel Pella. And so it has been known ever since. Well, here is an aerial view of Pella. And up here is the upper city that is being excavated. And down in this area is the lower city, which again was prominent in the Roman times. And out over here is the Jordan Valley. And this is in what is known as the Kingdom of Jordan today, on the east side of the Jordan River. I think one of the most romantic places I was in while we were over in Israel was on top of the hill of Pella, looking over into Israel. And I thought this would be a wonderful place for me to bring my wife and they have a little restaurant up on top there, and have a nice meal looking out over the Jordan Valley into Israel with Beit Shan, Tel Rehov, the Jezreel Valley stretching out. Just a lovely sight. I haven't been able to fulfill that desire. But it's a beautiful, beautiful setting. Now, where does Pella intersect with the Scriptures? It's not mentioned in the Scriptures. But in Luke 21, Jesus describes the soon-to-come destruction of Jerusalem by the Roman armies. And he says, but when ye see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that her desolation is at hand. Then let them that are in Judea flee unto the mountains, and let them that are in the midst of her depart out. And let not them that are in the country enter therein. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. This last verse says that when Jerusalem is captured, and when was that done? 70 AD, famous date. And the Jewish people have been scattered throughout the world ever since. And Jerusalem has indeed been trodden down by the Gentiles. But does he say forever? No. Until, that's a time word. Until something happens, the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. How many of you remember the 6-Day War? Did you live through it in 67? Well, it was quite a week. It's called the 6-Day War. And in 6 days, the Israelis repelled the attack from 3 sides upon them, from Egypt, from Jordan, from Syria. And they pushed the armies back, the invading armies back to their capitals. In the process, they recaptured the old city of Jerusalem and the Western Wall, the Temple Mount, and so forth. Shortly after that, I read in an account that there were more sermons in churches on this verse the following Sunday than had ever happened any time in the world. There was almost unanimous observation of this. That Jerusalem would be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles were fulfilled. And the speculation was that perhaps the times of the Gentiles were drawing to a close, because now the Jewish people were back in the old city of Jerusalem. As a matter of fact, for 24 hours they had the possession of the Temple Mount. But it was felt that it was too aggravating to the Muslim Arabs for them to possess that, so they gave it back to the Mufti and the observance of Islam. Some feel that was a mistake. At any rate, that's 21-24. But going back to the previous verses, it says, this is what you are to do when Jerusalem is surrounded. Flee from Judea. Flee to the mountains. Depart out of the city. Well, 70 AD, of course, Jerusalem and Israel had revolted against Rome and had declared their independence from Rome. But Rome would not tolerate that, would not allow Israel to secede from the empire, and came down with crushing force upon Israel. As the armies were coming down from Galilee down toward Jerusalem, of course there were many Jewish believers in Christ in Jerusalem. Thousands of them from the time of the New Testament. In fact, this was still the time of the New Testament. And so they were living in Jerusalem. They saw these warnings from Jesus, and they said, we've got to get out of Jerusalem. The prophecy is about to be fulfilled that he gave. Jerusalem is going to be destroyed. The temple is going to be destroyed. Not one stone is going to be left upon another. He tells us to get out, and they were obedient to Jesus' command. But where would they go? Of course, we're not told this in the New Testament, but Josephus, the Jewish historian, does tell us. And he says that this band of Jewish Christians, thousands of them, departed from Jerusalem, and they went to Pella in the upper Galilee, or upper Jordan Valley, south of the Sea of Galilee, but on the east side of the Jordan. And they remained there for many decades. So, Pella became a sanctuary for the Jewish Christians of Jerusalem when they left the city. Now, here is a restored colonnade there of a Byzantine church that was in Pella. Pella's history was much like the others. It was a Canaanite city on the upper part. And the lower part was a Roman and then Byzantine area and city. And they found this, the remains of the Byzantine church that was there in Pella. I tried to find some evidence of the first century Jewish believers there. I couldn't find anything that would definitely indicate, but it may have been, they may have had their church building on this same area where the later Byzantine church building was built. They found the floors of various structures, stones laid there, and then floors formed around them. And that brings us to Petra. The rose red city, half as old as time. That is a moniker that was given Petra. The magnificent city. The Nabatean city. Where is it? Well, here is an Old Testament map. And right here where our blue arrow is points to Bozrah. And that is believed to be the Old Testament name of Petra. Of course, Petra means rock, and Bozrah means a stone. So, it's believed that this is where Petra what it was called in Old Testament times. You can see it's in Edom. What was Edom? South of Moab. Of course, today it is in the kingdom of Jordan. Well, one thing that we were surprised to find was that many Israelis go through the rather difficult process of crossing the Jordan River into Jordan to come to Petra. And why are they interested in Petra? Well, you realize that it has been, I think last year or 2 years ago, it was designated one of the 7 wonders of the modern world. I only know of one other. I don't know the whole list, but one of the other lists is the Great Pyramid in Yucatan. In Yucatan, of the Mayan. No, not the Mayans.
Incan?
Or is it the Mayans? What's the Indian group there?
That's the Mayan.
Well, Aztec.
Huh?
Either Aztec or Mayan.
Aztec? It's, okay, one of the Indian groups there anyway. Which one has the calendar for 2012? Is that?
That's Mayan.
It's a Mayan.
Is that mine? Okay, well, it's mine. All right. Anyway, Petra is an amazing place, and they want to go there. But I think the Israelis unconsciously may be eyeing it as a place of refuge, which I believe it will become in the end times. Or at least something very much like it. Here we have Petra again in another map. You can see the kingdom of Jordan, where it is. This is a modern map. So, it is really a tourist attraction. It's the main tourist attraction in Jordan. It's mentioned, Bozrah is mentioned in the Old Testament. And Selah is mentioned, which may be another name for Petra. Speaking of one of the kings, he slew of Edom in the valley of Salt 10,000 and took Selah by war and called the name of it Joktheel unto this day. So those may be other names of Petra. Isaiah 63, who is this that comes from Edom with dyed garments from Bozrah? This that is glorious in his apparel, marching in the greatness of his strength. I that speak in righteousness, mighty to save. Wherefore art thou red in thine apparel, and thy garments like him that treadeth in the vinevat? I have trodden the winepress alone, and of the peoples there was no man with me. Yea, I trod them in my anger, and trampled them in my wrath, and their lifeblood is sprinkled upon my garments, and I have stained all my raiment. For the day of vengeance was in my heart, and the year of my redeemed is come. Now this is a messianic prophecy. This is a prophecy about the Messiah. And it's the time of vengeance. It is the time of the war of Armageddon. And it's the time of redeeming Israel. He says, the year of my redeemed has come. So finally, Israel is redeemed. And vengeance is taken out upon the enemies of the Lord and of Israel. But he's seen in Edom. He's seen coming out of Bozrah. which may well be Petra. And it's thought that this may be the place where Israel is nurtured and hidden and taken care of during the latter half of the tribulation, during the Great Tribulation. And where a large part of them received Christ at His second coming. It's spoken of in Revelation 12. And she, the woman, that represents Israel, was delivered of a son, a man-child, who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up unto God and to His throne. Speaking of Christ, and speaking of the birth of Christ out of Israel, and then His being caught up to God in the ascension after His death and resurrection. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, that there they may nourish her 1,260 days, 1,260 days, 3.5 years. And there was war in heaven, Michael and his angels going forth to war with the dragon. And the dragon warred and his angels, and they prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. Satan and his demons are cast forever and irretrievably out of heaven. But there is a place prepared by God for Israel to be nurtured, nourished for 3.5 years. Why is this place thought to be the place? Well, it's just so well situated. It is in the wilderness, to be sure. And this is the first thing you see as you enter into the city of Petra. The magnificent temple, sometimes it's called the treasury. And it's carved out of living stone, out of the face of the cliff, in beautiful red stone. These are either dwelling places or tombs, also carved out of the rock. Many thousands of people lived there. The Nabateans. The people who did this work were the Nabateans, a nomadic group that settled in Petra. They were Arabs. They were Ishmaelites. But they had this remarkable city. It was, so what do you do in Petra, out there in the desert, in the wilderness? Well, it was the hub of a multi-thousand-mile caravan trail that started in the Far East, in India, in China, and brought in the spices and the wares of the Far East through the deserts to Petra, and then out from Petra to the Mediterranean. And they had outposts every 50 miles and collected tolls with all of this caravan trade. Yes?
Oh, I guess they just used chisels or axes or whatever to dig out all that rock.
They had what now?
Chisels or whatever, hammers and chisels.
Yeah, it was all hand done.
That's a lot of work.
Carved out of live rock. Yes. It was amazing. Amazing. You see the size of the people down there. There's the treasury building or the temple building at sunset. What beautiful hues come out in the rock. It's just amazing. And it's more than just a narrow little area there. It goes on back for many miles. It's almost impregnable It is protected by the Seek, which we will see. It's a narrow tunnel going through. Nobody has ever conquered Petra as such. Even the Romans. They negotiated and made quite a lucrative business deal with Petra. But it is a formidable defense. This is looking at the treasure as you come out of the Seek, the gorge. And you see it goes on and on and on. It's surrounded by these mountains. And there in the middle, you can see that they had their obligatory theater there. Look how it takes advantage of the wind sweeping up and taking the sound up to the top. Here you are in the Seek. That's what it looks like. It's hundreds of feet high. And you're going through this narrow canyon. And you get a peek of the magnificent treasury coming out of it. And what a picture there. Yes. And you see the people dwarfed by the height of these majestic structures that were carved out of the rock. And it goes deep into the rock. Now, you might want to know how Petra was discovered in modern times. It has been hidden from civilization for many hundreds of years. Nobody in Europe knew of the existence of Petra. But there was a Frenchman who traveled throughout the Arabian countries, and he heard about this remarkable city. But no one would tell him where it was or how to find it. So he disguised himself as an Arab. He knew the language well. And he just disguised himself as an Arab and kind of infiltrated into a Bedouin community, nomadic community. And he learned about the city, Petra. And he got them to take him there. They assumed that he was a fellow Muslim and a fellow Arab and so forth. And they took him there. And he was just astonished at this city of Petra. This was, I think, in the 1700s, maybe 1800s, but I think somewhere in there. And he got back to Europe with the story of Petra. And it became a big splash there. I believe it was in the 1800s. And then, of course, what the Arabs did not want to happen was for it to be discovered by the world, and then people would swarm into the area as tourists and whatever. And that's exactly what happened. People came. People started to come. But now, the Kingdom of Jordan looks on Petra as a great national treasure. And they call it their red gold. Red gold. Oil is black gold. But Petra is red gold. And you can see why they call it that. So anyway, that's sort of the story of Petra. Another interesting thing is that William Blackstone, the Chicagoan, believer in Christ, a great premillennialist, a great pre-tribulation rapturist, believed in the future of Israel, believed that Petra would be the place in the wilderness that God has prepared. Took Hebrew New Testaments and hid them in the city of Petra for the purpose of informing the Israelis who came there during the tribulation, who would come there. It's a great story. We didn't find any New Testaments while we were there. Maybe they're not there anymore. But at any rate, it's an interesting story. Okay, well, that is Petra. We got maybe a minute or two. Yes.
So about what time frame was this Petra developed? Anybody know?
The question is, when was it developed? And I think before I answer that, this would be a good time to sign off for our web students. We're delighted that you could be with us during this evening. We thank you for being with us throughout the course and invite you to be with us again in April when we study the rapture and the second coming of Christ. Any questions?